This video is a review of chapter 4, 4.1 and 4.2. In this chapter, we've been really working on how we go from a decimal to a fraction to a percent, fraction, decimal, converting anything we want from one to the other. If we know one of these, we can convert it to the other two. Okay, so this is just a review. We've done a lot of this in class. Um, so there's two things we do with decimals. We can take a decimal to a fraction, and we can take a decimal to a percent. So let's start with that. Let's practice with a decimal. Say I have 0.3. If I have 0.3, that is going to need to go to a fraction and then a percent. The way you go from a decimal to a fraction is you say it and then you write it. So you don't say 0.3. You say what this is. What place value is that? That's the tenths. So that is 3/10. 3/10. And now I have to simplify it if I can. That one I cannot. Okay. Now it could be a really small number. Say it's like that. 0.025. So I look at this number and I see that I have 25 and it goes over whatever place value is last. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So it's 25 thousandths. Like that. Okay? Then that I can simplify because they both go into 5. So I divide this by 5 and this by 5, and I get 5 over 200. Now those can both be divided by 5 also. And when I do that, I get 1 over 40. And that's my answer. So this is 3/10. This is 0.025 or 25 thousandths, which is the small, or it could be more. It could be a lot. It could be 12.2. 12.2. So I say that this is 12 and 2/10. 2/10. 12 and 2/10. Now the 2/10 I can simplify. 12 and 1/5. Okay? So I've taken all of these decimals. Some are more than a whole, and these two are less than a whole, and this one's really less than a whole, really small. And I took them all and I put them into a fraction. 3/10, 140, 12.5, 12 and 1/5. Okay? Now, so that's decimal to a fraction. Let's go decimal to a percent. And the way you do that, now remember I did give you that sheet and I want you to be able to use it. It has all the steps you need to take to do these things. For this one, decimal to a percent, you start with your decimal and you move the decimal place 2 values to the right. It's kind of like you're multiplying it by 100. You're multiplying it by 100. So you go 2, since I'm going, I said left, I think. I meant right. Since I'm going this way, if I'm going to the right, I gotta move the decimal to the right. And I go 1, 2. So I have 0.3, I go 1, 2, put my decimal there. And because there's nothing here, I need to put a 0 there. Then I get rid of this. And then I put the percent sign. So 0.3 or 3/10 is 30%. That's all you gotta do. Move it 2 over to the right. So in this one, I go 1, 2, and it gets me 2.5%. If I would times that by 100, it would be the same thing as 2.5. This one, move it over 2 to the right, 12.2. So I put my 12.2 here, and I'm gonna move it 2, 1, 2. I need to add a 0 there. Okay, and then I add my percent symbol. So that's a huge percent. 12.2 is 1,220%. That's big. Okay. So if you're going from decimal to decimal to percent, you just move it over 2 times. Okay. All right, hopefully we're good with that. If you have a decimal, you can take it to a fraction, take it to a percent. Now, let's go from fraction to a decimal, and then fraction to a percent. So we'll start with a fraction here, and let's do 5/8. 5/8. Now, to go from a fraction to a decimal, you might need one of these, because all it is 5 divided by 8. So you start with your numerator is 5, and you divide it by your denominator, 8, and it gets you 0.625. That's all I did. I just did the numerator divided by the denominator. Okay? Now, we could do a bigger number, like, let's do 4 3/4. Let's do 4 3/4. It's a mixed number. So when you divide the numerator with the denominator, what do you do with this 4? Well, you could bring that over as the whole number and just say 4, and then you get here and you do 3 divided by 4, and you get 0.75. So you could do it that way, or you could change this into an improper. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 3 is 19. 19 over 4. And then you take the 19 divided by 4, and you get 4.75. So either way, I think going from a fraction to a decimal is simplest when you just do the numerator divided by the denominator. Okay. All right, let's now go. Oh, I guess I didn't have to add that quite yet. Because now we know how to take a fraction to a decimal, but let's take a fraction to a percent. Okay. And the way you take a fraction to a percent, 2 ways. One way is you could try and get the bottom number to 100. 8 times what equals 100? Well, if you're not sure, you tape it in your calculator and you put 100 divided by 8. Ooh, that's 12.5. That's not an even number. So I'm not going to be able to get to 100 that way. So what I would do on this one is I would do a step before that. I go from here to here, then to percent. Because we know that 5 divided by 8 is 0.625, and then you remember to go from decimal to a percent, you just go over 2. 62.5%. And then you have your percentage. Now this one does go into 100. So So I can take 4 times 25, and then I take 19 times 25. And so let's see what 19 times 25 is. That's 475. 475 over 100. And whatever's over 100 is your percent. 475%. But I could have also gone 1, 2 for 475%. All right. That covers that. All right, last one. Percent. Say we have a percent over here, and we need to get it to either a decimal or a fraction. So let's go to the decimal first. So say we have 78%. So we have 78%. I'm gonna put that right here, 78%. And it can't be a percent because I'm in the decimal. So the steps I follow is I remove the percent symbol. I make sure I have the decimal in where it goes. And there's always a decimal, even if you don't see it, it's right there. And now I have to go 2 this way, 2 to the left, 1, 2. So 78% is 0.78. Now, I can always check that by going the other way. I know that this decimal to a percent is I move it over 2. 1, 2, 78%. Okay. Now, one last one. A percent to a fraction. You can go right from here to here. And the way you do that, you take whatever you have, 34, and you put it out of 100. And then you have to simplify it. And this one you can divide by 2, 17 over 50. Okay. Or you could go from here to here. So 34% is also, I move the decimal over 2.34. And then this would be 34 hundredths, which is the same there. I simplify to get that. Okay. Let's convert this 78 to a fraction. But say I wanted to go to a decimal first. So I go 78 to a decimal is 0.78, and then 78 hundredths. And then I simplify that, and they're both even. So I can cut them both in 2, 39 fiftieths. Okay. I could have also gone 78 over 100, but that would have got me the same thing. Okay. This chart is a helpful thing. And you can draw it on your own paper. I have copies for you that I give to you. I think if you use it, you will be able to go from a decimal to a fraction to a percent and back and forth no matter whatever you want. One of the things I like to do is if I have any number over here, if I can get it to a decimal, I like to take a decimal to both fraction and percent. So even if I'm going from a fraction to a percent, I might go fraction to decimal first and then to a percent. So you fill in the chart, you fill in all the columns, and then you go back and look at what the question is asking you. What did it want? Did it want a decimal or a fraction or a percent? And with your chart all filled out like this, you can just decide, oh, they wanted a percent? Here it is. Okay?